Did anybody watch Street Fighter League? I did. I wasn't very invested for most of the season, but it was nice to leave on in the background. It's nice to switch tabs to some top-level play with great commentary, but the only time Street Fighter League really caught my attention was during the playoffs, specifically this one set, Punk vs Xiaohai. For weeks before this set, a rivalry had been brewing between these two players. This final set, during the playoffs, would be the one that mattered most, so I gave it my full attention. Immediately, something struck me as weird, particularly with Xiaohai's Ken and how he uses fireballs. Xiaohai was adamant on using fireballs at very close range, a strategy completely foreign to me. In my head, Hadoukens, like most other projectiles, are best suited for mid to long range, a range where my opponent needs to take a risk like jumping to get past that projectile. At the ranges that Xiaohai is using his fireball, I'd be throwing out normals instead. This is the range those normals are built for. Successfully landing a normal would lead into so much more than a fireball, so Xiaohai, what is going on? That's what I'm trying to figure out, especially because, well, Xiaohai is a top-level Street Fighter player, and I can't reach top 5 at my local. What kind of top-level logic is at play here? I have an ingrained idea of how projectiles should be used in fighting games. When my opponent is far away, use projectile is one of the first options that come to mind, but whenever my opponent is close to me, use projectile is the last thing on my mind. It's a universal thing. In most games, even outside of fighting games, there's an assumption that projectiles are built for distance, not for scrapping. So why does Xiaohai do the opposite? Why throw these fireballs where you can use something far more rewarding like a normal? My first guess was that Xiaohai probably couldn't use his fireballs at longer ranges even if he wanted to, because he could easily be punished for it. Playing at their level, every seemingly mundane fireball is actually thrown with a great level of caution. Most of us play at a level where we're comfortable enough throwing out fireballs without too much thought. I mean, there's still a level of finesse to our zoning. A lot of us are good at knowing when to take risks or when to hold back, but honestly, are we really that worried about imminent death every time we throw a fireball? Probably not. We can get away with quite a few fireballs actually. And yet, even at my measly level, a guy who can't reach top 5 at his Street Fighter local, sometimes I suddenly lock in and react to a sliver of motion, punishing a fireball with my own dive kick. Now if I'm able to do that in the evening after a workday while bantering in a voice chat, I think these top level players aren't going to let their opponents get away with careless fireballs either. In fact, that's exactly what Punk demonstrated at the very beginning of his set against Xiaohai. Xiaohai isn't using fireballs in the traditional way because it's incredibly risky. Punk wouldn't have too much trouble reacting to the fireball startup and punishing him for it. That's my theory. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. Sure, Xiaohai can't use fireballs at mid to long range very easily, but that doesn't explain why he's still opting to throw fireballs at close range instead of using Ken's really good normals. So my next natural guess was that Xiaohai threw these fireballs because ultimately they still reach further than any of Ken's normals. Punk, like other good players, intentionally dances in and out of Ken's maximum range, fishing for a normal that he can punish. If Xiaohai wants Ken's normals to actually connect, he needs to be vulnerable and walk into a range where those normals will actually reach. Otherwise, he'll miss his attack and be open to a whiff punish. Welcome to footsies. Between anyone familiar with footsies, there's an awareness that any button you try to land will also run the risk of missing its target, leaving its hurt box out in the open, and consequently being hit right back. Wait, maybe that's it. Maybe that's the missing piece. Xiaohai is probably using fireballs instead of normals because fireballs don't put out a hurt box. They don't carry the risk of being out of range and getting consequently whiff punished. With this in mind, Xiaohai's gameplay makes so much more sense to me. He took advantage of a nuance behind fireballs that never properly crossed my mind. Well, of course it never crossed my mind. Across so many different forms of entertainment, fireballs and similar projectiles stand out by their effectiveness from long range. In the mind, it's hard to form the idea that they can still serve a purpose at close range, like it does in Street Fighter. It's one of many expert tactics that we can learn from watching players of Xiaohai's caliber. He's introduced me to the possibility of using fireballs as a footsies tool. It's an eye-opening discovery for me. Maybe Street Fighter veterans already knew this all along, but regardless, I went back through older matches to see if I could spot this nuance anywhere else. I of course decided to look up the fireball character, Sagat, and I noticed things I hadn't before. Zaffarino had a Sagat that I really enjoyed watching during Street Fighter V, but it's only now that I can see how different his Sagat was from my own. Sagat is well known as one of Street Fighter's zoners. Looking back on my old matches with the King, I do notice a sense of fear in my play. I was so obviously afraid of throwing fireballs unless I was far away from my opponent. I spent so much time walking backwards instead of actually covering the space in front of me. Sometimes I even backdashed until I was a full screen distance away. If Zaffarino saw my Sagat, he would definitely scold me.
Wasted movement. Oh my lord. All these wiggling. All this back forward, back. Cut it out. You're hiding behind your discomfort. You're hiding behind your movement.
Truthfully, I knew all of this. I spent very little time with Sagat, so I didn't explore the nuance in his moveset. My actual Street Fighter V characters were Juri, Kage, and a hint of Cody. Speaking of, baseball season starts soon. Lock in. I had already known that effective zoning was about being comfortable with risk, but when my zoning is rusty, I can easily fall back into the bad habit of only throwing fireballs that carry no risk. These fireballs have no risk. That's why I'm relying on them. That's why I'm trying to create enough space to throw fireballs that are this safe. That's why I'm leaving so much open space while I'm busy trying to run away. That's why, no matter how much I move, my opponent eventually closes the gap anyway. That's why it's bad zoning, and that's why it's important to embrace risk. To have zoning that is truly threatening, you'd need to overcome the fear of getting jumped in on. Eating the jump-in combo is inevitable. It comes with the archetype. Like Zaffarino said, good zoners get jumped in on. What's important is that you don't let it happen in key moments. Zaffarino delves deeper into the topic and explains how he navigates the risks and even offers mentality advice for overcoming that fear while you play, but I'll link his video in the description because I have more fireballs to talk about. With all I've said up until this point, I've likely given the impression that long-range fireballs are bad and close-range fireballs are the key. But make no mistake, despite all I've said so far, fireballs still serve a variety of purposes when fired from longer ranges. Sure, when you throw a long-range fireball, it's unlikely that it'll actually successfully hit your opponent. They have far too much time to react in any way they prefer. In a race to deal damage, throwing fireballs like this won't get you very far. However, although these long-range fireballs won't do any damage, one way they can serve you is by granting you the safety to set something up. In the case of Sagat, he can buff his uppercut by finding a moment to activate his V-skill, Tiger Charge. However, these moments don't come easy because Sagat must leave himself open for a large amount of time. He can't even safely charge up after a successful anti-air. But the one moment he can activate this lengthy V-skill with near guaranteed safety is after throwing a fireball from long range. Once this fireball is on the screen, you know they need to handle it, and most characters are unable to traverse the fireball and still reach Sagat in time to punish him. They can block the fireball or they can jump over the fireball. Either way, it's going to slow down their approach enough that Sagat doesn't need to worry about the jump scare run-up. This strategy works even better with slower fireballs. More time on that fireball spent traveling to the opponent to force an interaction is subsequently more time Sagat is able to perform an action behind that fireball. I stumbled across this strategy myself inside a different fighting game, Granblue Fantasy Versus. I used this strategy with Metera, also known as Sagat with a jetpack. Metera does seem similar to Sagat. Both characters are primarily zoners that shoot low and high fireballs at varying speeds. Metera doesn't have a V-skill she can use to buff her special moves, but she can still look for breathing room to summon a butterfly. Look at how cute it is. Look at them go. Look, 2 butterflies. Adorable. Anyway, the goal is for Metera to shoot them and then they explode. These are incredibly helpful to Metera's zoning game. A low and high fireball may be all Sagat needs in Street Fighter, but Granblue, this game has rolls, spot dodges, and differing jump arcs. There's a little extra required in order for Metera to survive. Butterflies help Metera keep her game going. They can pile on extra chip damage, they can punish people for spot dodging or rolling a projectile, they can even erect a wall against jumps that can leave opponents vulnerable to unblockable normals. They're so useful! But you can't summon a butterfly for free. These summons leave Metera wide open. If you choose the wrong time to summon a butterfly, you could very quickly eat shit. But there are ways to minimize this risk. I safely summoned regular butterflies in neutral by doing it behind a long-range fireball, and preferably the slower fireballs. Much like Sagat using his V-skill behind a fireball, I knew that, no matter if they rolled or super jumped the fireball, I would safely have my butterfly on the screen before they managed to get close to me. Butterflies are fun. Metera is fun. Granblue is fun. It's full of really cool ideas without feeling too overwhelming to pick up or to fight against. When it comes to Granblue's ideas for fireballs, honestly, Metera isn't even as cool as it gets. Hold on, I think I'm having flashbacks, hold on. Even the most subtle differences, like the properties of a fireball, make all the difference in game. The fireballs of Versus are worthy of an entire video itself. Oh, look at that, yet another video I wanted to make over a year ago but only got around to doing now. Well, let's talk about some of the fireballs in Granblue Fantasy Versus Rising. Gran and Catalina's fireballs are fairly traditional. Jeeta's fireballs are similar, but she can choose to spend extra time charging her fireballs to grant them higher priority. They'll take longer to start, but once they're on the field, it'll beat out most other fireballs. You can also mess with these variable startups to throw off the opponent's spot dodge timings. Lancelot's fireballs are terrible in the traditional sense. You could never zone with these fireballs because of their huge startup and slow travel. However, these traits of the fireball blend well with Lancelot's core game plan. Lancelot doesn't have an ounce of zoning in his twink body. He has no need to keep people out because he's always the one trying to get in, playing at a close range where his short normals can finally become useful. These incredibly slow fireballs are actually incredibly great at being cover for Lancelot, who will hide behind them while he makes his approach. It's kind of funny how, because of this fireball, the rushdown character is often seen running away because Lancelot players really want to put this fireball on the screen. Belial can is it Belial or Belial? I want to say Belial, it sounds nicer. Belial can use his fireball in the traditional sense, including sending it upwards like Sakura, but he can also alter its properties mid-travel. I've seen Belial players throw the fireball and stop it in place right before it reaches the opponent. They don't spin it on top of them, but in front of them. Because the fireball doesn't actually connect with the opponent, it won't reach its maximum hits, which means it won't stop spinning. The fireball stays on the screen as a lingering hitbox, a wall that Belial can sneakily approach behind. It's so clever, it's so cool. Percival's fireballs are the only ones actually made of fire, though unfortunately they aren't balls. Instead, it's a trail of fire along the ground. Each version of his fireball serves a drastically different purpose. The medium fireball is the most traditional in the sense that it'll serve you best in neutral. The EX fireball is important for Percival's combos, but it does have its own value in neutral as well. However, I think Percival's light fireball is the most interesting one. Light fireball is very slow, but unlike Lancelot, you can't use it to cover your approach because it doesn't travel very far. It doesn't need to. Light fireball is best used as a pressure tool, especially in the corner. With the right spacing, it takes advantage of the benefits of fireballs I mentioned way back, their lack of an extended hurt box. Percival can stand back at a safe distance while his light fireball crawls over to the opponent, and by the time it connects, Percival is massively plus on block. Used in conjunction with Percival's huge normals, it's difficult for players to find an escape route. You can roll through almost every fireball in Granblue Fantasy Versus, but you can't roll through this one because rolls lose to anything hitting at your feet. The most attractive way out would be to jump, though of course, Percy is waiting for that exact option. Avatar Belial, who I'll just be calling Abel, can do the same thing with his own light fireball, which is rather similar to Percival's, but this strategy is less effective with Abel's kit. His normals are much shorter, so if he wants to run this type of pressure, he needs to stand closer to his opponent. But if he's standing closer, his fireball connects faster, and Abel has less time to recover. He won't be as plus on block as Percival. But you know what, that's okay. Abel already has so much going for him in the way of fireballs. His medium fireball is a whole different move. Again, not an actual ball, but it's best used in neutral like all the others. This fireball is special though because it has massive vertical reach. It cleanly beats the traditional answer to fireballs, jumping over them. You can still block this fireball in the air, but if the Abel reacts to your jump, he can use Pact to punish you with an air unblockable follow-up. The only way through is to roll. Although, if you choose that path, be sure to pray first, because if Abel uses any of his other fireballs, they'll kill that roll. When it comes to fireballs, Granblue Fantasy Versus feels like a playground of innovation. I don't think that traditional fireballs ever got stale. Xiaohai proved to me that I can always find new ways to use these basic tools. But Granblue's desire to push the traditional forwards, I think, is one of this game's biggest strengths. Fireball wars have never looked better. I see why they show it off in every character trailer. In these wars, every character has their own unique spin on what a fireball can be. That's their ammo. It'll do well against some and worse against others. Every character also has the same trump card, their EX fireball, which can win the war immediately at the cost of sending their ammo into a long period of cooldown. If you've won the war, that's fine, but in a game with spot, dodge, and roll, if you use this card unwisely, you sacrifice what may be your only source of ammo. Granblue evolves Fireball Wars from a game of chicken to a game of chess. Cliche, I know, but I think that these Fireball Wars have earned that crown. At least until a beam arrives and fucks with the rules entirely, thanks Abel. Although, maybe I can't say anything. My main Henri does the same thing with his spear. It just can't be beat. Except by Abel, again, who will beam you from the skies because fuck you, he's Avatar Belial. But honestly, when this Abel player in particular started shutting down my spear this way, I was pleasantly surprised. I rarely see anyone come up with an answer for Henri's spear, and I can't believe I never thought of this idea myself when I spent time on Abel. That would have helped me out in so many Fireball Wars. These were ranked matches, so I did what I had to do, adapt on the fly. I realized that Abel is making a commitment each time he enters flight and fires a beam. I can run right under him. In turn, this player responded with some adaptations of their own, feinting flights and baiting me into running at them like a fool. From there, mind games ensued. I was having fun. Navigating the long-range game in Granblue is incredibly fun. At first, I didn't think it was that different from any other fighting game. Sure, in Granblue you can spot dodge a fireball, whatever, I'm still going to use my fireballs the same way. However, after experiencing how the different fireballs, their different versions, and different mechanics all work together, I finally understood one of the reasons that this game is so appealing. It's just fireballs, but complicated. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. We started with a genuine curiosity as to what Xiaohai was doing, and then I needed to get the Granblue out of my system. But again, I hope you enjoyed it, and I would appreciate it if you left a like or commented any of your thoughts, and subscribe if you want to see more. But otherwise, again, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.